People who have had sex with someone with a disability of some sorts. What was different about that experience? First girlfriend had Tourette's, not the cursing kind but the twitching kind. Sometimes while giving her handy she would switch the turbo mode on for a few seconds. Switch to turbo mode, I'm dead. I dated a girl who was born with cloaca, at birth the vagina, urethra and anus all fused into one hole. When the doctors created her vagina and anus they used some very sensitive tissue and she could climax every possible sexual way like 20 times a night. Additional, she was a very horny person. Although some complications in her daily life, her perseverance to not let her disability get in the way of her life astonished me. Well done, what a silver lining to an unfortunate birth defect at least. Oh man, I'm late to the party, but this is one of my favorite NSFW stories about my own life, so I have to share. While I was at university, for a few months I dated a girl with a number of health issues. She'd been born really underweight, suffered from bad joints, fibromyalgia, an inverted uterus and a host of other issues. Sex was kinda complicated but she was fun and attractive and we made it work. She also lost her right eye due to an infection when she was a child, leaving her partially sighted with a glass eye. Once, while we were getting into it doggy style, on one particularly vigorous thrust from me, said glass eye flew out of her eye, hitting the headboard with an audible ting. I stopped, uncertain of what had happened, only for her to turn around with one eye missing and burst out laughing when I fell back in surprise. A friend of mine was with a girl with only one leg. He said she was totally normal but couldn't be on top because of balance. He later scooted his bed up against the wall. Dated a girl who was extremely hard of hearing, something like 10% hearing in one ear, and 30% in the other. The tiny bones in her ears were damaged during her birth by an overzealous doctor with forceps. Sex was mostly normal, except her bad ear was like a free orgasm button. All it took was kissing her on her bad ear, a part of her body she was probably extremely self-conscious about. Other than that, if her hearing aids were out, say in the shower, she'd be twice as loud as a full-hearing girl without realizing it. It had its benefits and drawbacks. Hey lil mama, let me whisper in your ear. I'm an escort who has a client who is confined to a wheelchair. The guy genuinely wants company and he sees me because his condition means he can die at any moment, and when I first met him, the first thing he said was, I hire your services because I want to be with someone who won't cry when I pass away. Once a week, we meet up at his house and we talk and hang out for about 40 minutes. He gets groceries delivered and teaches me how to cook. I help him with his gardening. He shows me how to sew and to do cross-stitching, and we talk about his travels, sports, his treatments, etc. The other 20 minutes is usually spent fooling around. It's more sensual touching as he cannot have sex and he struggles to get an erection. He has a liftable bed, so he lifts the bed up to his height and gives me oral. Honestly, I probably will cry when he passes away because in the short time we've known each other, he has taught me a lot about myself and general life tips. Originally, I was going to reject his offer, but something about the way he messaged me drew me to accept the first booking. Edit, you know, a word, edit dots. Thank you everyone for your kind words. I really appreciate it, especially after a rough month of dealing with my own mental issues. If anyone has any questions or disputes about my story, feel free to message me as I'm all ears. Smile. I dated a girl back in the early 2000s who lost a leg in a car accident. She was aggressively sexual to a fault. I'm not sure nympho is the right term for her. I think it was more that she used sex as a way to cope with her anger about the situation. Because her leg was removed near her hip, it was easier to perform missionary than other positions. So that was typically how we had sex. It was easier for me because I could maneuver more without her leg getting in the way. Some people might say that is a shitty thing to say, but I think she would tell you that it made the sex better, which it definitely did. She was a cool girl and I really liked her. but she had a lot of emotional issues and pent-up anger that I was never really able to come to terms with, and after a while I got tired of being the punching bag she would take her anger out on when she was having a bad day. I never blamed her. She was a professional dancer before losing her leg, and it killed her career. She never recovered that part of herself, and I could tell it destroyed her. I wanted to be that person for her, you know, support her, but her anger just pushed me away. The sex was crazy good. Maybe some of the best sex I have ever had, but that just isn't enough to sustain a relationship. People ask me if I was ever weirded out by it, or had issues with her missing leg. Honestly, no. After a while, it was just a normal everyday thing. I cared about her. I still think about her sometimes. Those last few sentences really hit me hard. I like to think that I learned and grew from each of my past relationships, even the ones that ended badly. I can choose to be bitter about the way she treated me, or the way that it ended, but it serves no one. Instead, I choose to remember the girl she was before her anger made her a shell of that person. I hope she came to terms with her demons. Even though we haven't spoken in years, I always hoped she would find happiness again. I cannot imagine what she has gone through, and I don't want to. She was dealt a shitty hand, and you can only play with the cards you have been dealt. I'm deaf, with a cochlear implant. It used to be an implant that was behind the ear, but my current processor isn't. I usually clip it to my shirt on a day-to-day basis. But if I want to hear my wife while we're doing the deed, gotta keep my shirt on. It wasn't really a big deal for a while, but after a few years of always having sex with a shirt on, it gets old. I'm upgrading my processor in 2019, and I'm switching back to a behind-the-ear processor strictly so I can hear my wife while I'm completely naked. Back when I used to run my own IT business, I had an employee and friend who had the same problem and said he would make a makeshift armband out of a bandana to clip it to, and route the wire to his processor under his paracord necklace, choke it to keep it from flopping around and risking getting snagged in the middle of the dirty deed. He and his wife even turned it into a game where she'll lay out certain colored bandanas if she's in the mood for something interesting. Lol. I dated a girl with cerebral palsy, affecting her right side. She doesn't use her right side for hand shandies, but more than made up for it with effort from the left. After the first couple of nights over, I stopped noticing. She could also suck a golf ball through a garden hose, and subsequently we've been married for 2.5 years now. Suck a golf ball through a garden hose? Man, I'd be worried about her sucking your testicles out your pee hole. My husband is an amputee. I 10 years ago lost the leg, along with nerve damage. The nerve damage causes some impotence, nothing serious. Just sometimes we have to call it early, or not at all. Once he realized that I wasn't judging him for it, back when we were dating, it got better. He had a lot of nervousness about it, which makes it worse, but it usually just takes a little extra effort on my part to get him ready. Part of that is also that he is very giving. If he feels like I'm not into it, it happens. It's just who he is, and he's a wonderful person. I couldn't ask for a better so. As far as the missing leg, he's a below-the-knee amputee, and wears a prosthetic, but they've been trying to fix the nerve damage for years, and he has good and bad days. He can't stand during sex for long. The rest is about the same, physically. Really, the worst part is when he really wants to, but can't. Personally, yeah, it can get frustrating, but more the situation, and how he's feeling. For the most part, we have a wonderful sex life. A near-deaf girl I dated often forgot about the volume of her voice. I couldn't look the neighbors in the eye after that. You must have looked like a hero, haha, or a murderer. I am a nurse and was taking care of a lady with a colostomy. I walked in one night and her husband was having only what I can call piss. Penis in stomach. What the opening from your abdomen that empties your bowels into the colostomy bag is called. Sex with her. Was horrified, but later googled it, and stomach love is a fetish all in itself. This was several years ago and still hear about it from coworkers. Of all the things I've learned on this comment section tonight, this is the one I regret, cause now I have to live with this knowledge.